Okay, I gotta call you back. I'm about to have Bible study.
Why?
Because I'm saved. And I read the word.
Bible study?
Because it's important to know the word. How else we gonna battle all these demons and witchcraft? How else you gonna do it?
There are other books.
Girl, get off of my phone, girlfriend. Get off of my phone. I'll call you back.
I mean, that book was written by racist white people.
Girl, goodbye, girl. I'll call you in an hour. Y'all, let me get out the mama. She be on the same one would kill me.
When Tamar Braxton finally spoke up, the world didn't just pause, it froze. This wasn't one of those quick online rants meant for gossip blogs, and it wasn't another petty argument reality TV would twist for views. It was deeper. It was a sister releasing a silence that had been building for a lifetime, saying out loud what fans had whispered about for years. That behind the fame, behind the records, behind the polished image of a gospel-rooted family turned R&B powerhouse, there was a shadow, a darkness that strained love, fractured loyalty, and left one sister, Traci Braxton, standing alone at the edge of a spotlight she never fully reached. In the emotional way Tamar describes it, the pain Tracy carried didn't feel random. It didn't look like bad luck. It felt orchestrated, like certain doors were meant to open for some while quietly closing on others. The Braxton sisters grew up in pews and choir lofts, raised by a preacher father and a choir director mother. Faith wasn't just present, it was the foundation of their lives. Sundays were non-negotiable. Gospel filled every corner of their home. Scripture was treated as law. But as the girls grew and their harmony sharpened into something powerful enough to draw industry attention, a new pathway emerged, one leading from the church stage straight into boardrooms and recording studios. Fame knocked, and the family answered. For Toni Braxton, that door opened the widest. She became the breakout star, the voice that carried their family name into arenas, award shows, and charts across the world. Her success turned Braxton into a gold-plated legacy. Yet while Toni rose, Tracy's star dimmed before it ever had the chance to burn. She was sidelined, overlooked, and often labeled as the difficult one, the sister who didn't quite adapt to the direction the family was moving. But Tamar, the boldest of them all, had been dropping hints for years that something deeper was at play. She hinted at manipulation, at exclusion, at energies and pressures that didn't look like simple sibling rivalry. Now she speaks about it more openly, describing it as a pattern that fractured Tracy's peace and pushed her to the margins. Anyone who watched Braxton Family Values remembers the scenes. Tracy sitting on the edge of the couch, while the others laughed among themselves. The moments she begged to be heard. The tears that fell when she felt misunderstood or dismissed. At the time, viewers blamed editing or assumed she was struggling to adjust. But Tamar's words flipped the entire narrative. Maybe Tracy wasn't difficult. Maybe she felt disposable. Maybe she was carrying the silent cost of the family's success. Tamar has also spoken openly about a period in her life where she turned to prayer groups and Bible study for grounding, describing a journey to strengthen her faith while navigating emotional battles she felt around her. But instead of receiving support, she says she faced mockery. She recalls moments where she opened her Bible only to be brushed off, moments that felt especially painful coming from a family raised on gospel and church leadership. To Tamar, those reactions didn't feel like disagreements. They felt like betrayals, confirmations that the struggle she sensed wasn't coming from outsiders, but from within the very circle meant to protect her. Then Tamar revealed one of her most chilling memories, waking up injured, confused, and unable to recall what happened. A moment she described as terrifying, symbolic of how lost and vulnerable she felt during that season of her life. Whether interpreted spiritually, emotionally, or symbolically, it marked a turning point in her understanding of the forces she felt she was up against. When Tamar Braxton described the night she woke up injured and terrified, fans immediately began connecting the dots. Many wondered whether it felt like a warning, a strike against her for daring to speak, for daring to break the silence she believed surrounded her family dynamics. And when her story is placed beside Traci Braxton's life, the parallels feel unsettling. Tracy spent years feeling like the outcast, the overlooked sister whose talent never fully received the embrace it deserved. Her life ended too soon, too abruptly, and suddenly Tamar's long-hinted ideas about sacrifice didn't sound exaggerated to some listeners. They sounded possible. This leads to the haunting question Tamar has pushed into the spotlight. Was Traci Braxton the lamb? Was her silence, her exclusion, her emotional pain the hidden cost that allowed others, especially Toni, to keep shining without interruption? It's a chilling hypothesis, and Tamar fuels it with patterns she says were never accidental. She claims she was iced out repeatedly, left unread by her own siblings. According to her, Tawanda responded daily to the others, but often ignored her. That isn't simple distance. It feels, in Tamar's words, like strategic exclusion. When she tried fighting back through prayer circles and faith gatherings, she says those spaces were invaded. Outsiders appeared at meetings meant to be private. Footage leaked to blogs. And in one clip fans still remember, Toni refused to join hands in prayer, a moment that should have been sacred, suddenly shattered. Layered on top of this are Toni's own admissions in her memoir. She wrote about resenting their strict religious upbringing. She confessed to faking speaking in tongues as a child to satisfy expectations. She admitted faith felt suffocating to her. When that is lined up next to Tamar's memory of being mocked for Bible study, the picture becomes sharper. This wasn't just a sister who wasn't interested in church. It felt, to Tamar, like a deliberate rejection of faith and, at times, an attempt to undermine anyone else leaning on it. And that brings Tamar back to the word she repeats often: control. She paints a picture of a family where loyalty came with conditions, where faith was selectively used, and where love depended on compliance. In that picture, the one who carried the heaviest emotional toll was Tracy. While Toni toured the world and Tamar fought for her own spotlight, Tracy carried the burden of being the outsider. Fans saw it clearly: the hurt in her eyes, the strained moments on camera, the scenes where she seemed ganged up on. Now Tamar is saying what many longtime viewers sensed but never voiced. Tracy wasn't just the odd sister out. She was the one who paid the emotional price. The weight of Tamar's story becomes heavier when you consider everything she survived: near-death experiences, public breakdowns, suicide attempts, hospital stays. Each time, she hinted that her battles weren't only with depression or industry pressure. They were, she suggested, connected to something closer, something within her own bloodline. And with Tracy gone, that wound feels deeper than ever, because to Tamar, this isn't just tragedy. It's betrayal. So, where does this leave Toni Braxton? For years, she was the glamorous one, the icon, the legend, the polished face of the family. But if Tamar's perspective holds weight, every award, every ovation, every sold-out arena stands in a shadow. A shadow shaped like Traci Braxton. And what is fans holding their breath is Tamar's warning that she isn't finished. She's hinted that the darkest revelations remain unspoken. If her first implication is that Tracy was sacrificed emotionally, then what could possibly come next? The Braxton family, once viewed as a tight unit, now resembles a battlefield with fractured loyalty, splintered faith, and broken sisterhood. At the center stands Tamar Braxton, a woman who spent years branded as the dramatic troublemaker, now reappearing as the voice trying to expose the deeper pain. She isn't just speaking for herself. She believes she's speaking for Tracy's memory. To her, Tracy wasn't merely overlooked. She wasn't simply misunderstood. She was the one who carried the unseen cost. And that is why fans are going back through every old clip, every soft-spoken moment, every tear, every time Tracy sat quietly while the others carried on. What once looked like typical sibling tension now feels like potential evidence, receipts of a deeper system where one sister's pain became the unspoken price for another's success. And the question lingers: who, or what, was pulling the strings? Tamar Braxton's revelations suggest that the story doesn't end with her own struggles. If she keeps speaking, keeps peeling back layers, the world might uncover far more than anyone expected. The truly chilling part isn't just what Tamar is saying, it's how her account seems to fit together with Toni Braxton's own reflections. In her memoir, Toni described feeling trapped by religion as a child. She admitted to pretending to speak in tongues just to appease her parents, and she described faith not as comfort, but as something suffocating, weighted with guilt and pressure. Layer that with Tamar's experiences, Bible study circles mocked, prayers laughed at, her search for spiritual grounding dismissed, and a pattern begins to emerge. This wasn't merely a difference of opinion. It felt, to some, like a battle line drawn between sisters. Tamar reaching toward light, her efforts belittled. Toni, as Tamar describes, standing in opposition. Fans began digging, revisiting clips from Braxton Family Values. Traci Braxton pleading for recognition, breaking down over exclusion, expressing openly that she felt like the outsider. Paired with Tamar's claims, these moments take on new weight. What had once been dismissed as reality TV drama now reads like evidence of a deeper, unspoken hierarchy, a sister consistently denied the chance to flourish. Then there are Tamar's own near-death experiences, which only intensified the tension. Hospitalized after a reported overdose, waking in a pool of her own blood with memory gaps, moments that, she says, followed attempts to speak out. And each time, she recalls, the silence came not from the public, but from family. Birthday messages that felt cold, communication selectively withheld, distance replacing support. To many, a portrait of isolation. So fans ask the same questions Tamar has wrestled with. Is this just toxic family dynamics? Or is it something larger? Something darker? Industry pressures? An unspoken system of loyalty, where one sibling bears the brunt so others can rise? Or a painful, human reality. In some families, one member is consistently made the scapegoat, while the rest carry on as if nothing is wrong. Whatever the truth, Tamar refuses to stop. She continues to expose, hint by hint, suggesting that more revelations remain hidden. That cryptic social media post, "I can't wait until I can tell you all," lingers in fans' minds. What is she holding back? What could be darker than revealing the possible cost of a sister's exclusion? And what might happen to her if she goes further? Because this story isn't just about Toni Braxton anymore. It's about the entire Braxton legacy. For decades, the family's public image was one of unity, gospel roots, harmonized voices, sisterhood. Tamar's words challenge that image, claiming that the bonds were conditional, that faith was sometimes weaponized, that loyalty carried a price. And in this narrative, Traci Braxton bore the heaviest burden. Not just her peace, but her very place in the family story. The danger, however, lies in what might still be revealed. Every time Tamar speaks, she risks her health, her relationships, and her support system. Yet she continues. In her eyes, silence allowed Tracy's suffering to be buried beneath fame and spectacle. To remain quiet would be to let history repeat itself. This is why the world watches her so closely. Tamar Braxton is no longer simply narrating family tension. She is framing a story of exclusion, betrayal, and complicity, pointing to the complex cost behind fame and fortune. And if her account holds any truth, the legacy of one of R&B's most iconic voices may carry a shadow that can never fully be erased. No Grammy, no standing ovation, no Vegas residency can cover the cracks that Tamar insists have been there all along. And she refuses to let the world forget it. But here's where the entire story turns chilling. As chaotic as everything looks from the outside, the real message is in the silence coming from inside the Braxton circle. Tawanda Braxton openly admitting she barely speaks to Tamar anymore, while still keeping daily contact with the others. Toni sending perfectly polished messages that Tamar publicly calls fake. Trina choosing total silence. Every response, or lack of one, has made Tamar's claims feel heavier. Because silence in moments like these rarely feels like calm. To fans, it feels like guilt slowly rising to the surface. Then there's the symbolism Tamar supporters can't ignore. The shaved head. The spiritual talk, demons, energy, forces she feels she can't control. The butterflies. The one-eye imagery. The emotional spirals that mirror other artists who've spoken about pressure from the industry's darker corners. To some people, it's coincidence. To others, including Tamar herself, it feels like a warning sign. A sign that she isn't just fighting her family, she's fighting something much bigger. Looking back at Traci Braxton's final years only deepens that ache. She pushed forward with grace through illness, but often looked like she was carrying the weight alone. Fans vividly remember her speaking about her love for God, her desire to make music with her sisters again,